Hello, hello. I'm Dr. Judy, and today I want to talk to the woman who is navigating singleness as a Christian woman. You may be in your 20s, your 30s, 40s, or beyond, and you're wondering, when am I going to get married? You may be feeling lonely, left behind, like there's been some delay on your life, and you want to know how to maximize your singleness, and you want some biblical advice, inspiration, and encouragement for this season. I get it. I totally understand. I'm in my 40s. I'm single and I've never been married and I don't have any children. And I know what it feels like. You can often feel like everybody else is married but you. It can feel like that sometimes. And society and the church doesn't make it any easier because a large portion of social constructs, in my opinion, are centered around the family, marriage, and children. And so if you are not in any of those two categories, you can often feel like you're left out of things. And so this video is for you to give you some guidance, inspiration, encouragement. And so I have 5 lessons that I've learned as a single woman, how to live a fulfilling life as a single, how to make the best use of your single year. So the first lesson and reminder is that singleness is not a punishment. Although trust me, I know sometimes it can feel like it. You see your friends going out on dates and taking couples trips and you're like, well, when is my turn to experience that? But singleness is not evidence that God has overlooked you. And we have to remember the times when we felt like there was a delay. I'm sure that you've experienced some point in your life before where it felt like something was delayed. Maybe it was getting into university program or passing a test or purchasing a house, right? Where it felt like it was a delay. But then when time passed and you got more clarity on the situation and when things eventually worked out, you saw that what was in a delay was actually God's divine timing or was God's protection or something like that. So think of those times and let that encourage you so that you can reframe this singleness, which seems like a delay, and think of it as God's divine timing for you. And just like a good loving father doesn't withhold gifts from his children, God is not going to hold good gifts. God is not going to hold gifts um, and things that we need from his children if we seek him and earnestly pray and we are aligned, living in alignment with his will. And I don't believe that if you have the desire to get married, I think that means automatically that you don't have the gift of singleness. That's my understanding on that. And so just remind yourself that singleness is not a punishment. It's not a sign that God has overlooked you. You're not doing something wrong. You've not, um, you know, defective or failed to do something that you should have done. And just use that as a reminder to encourage yourself because the enemy will definitely come in and make single people think that they're being punished, that something is wrong with them because they're single. And that's not the case. I mean, there are plenty of people that have gotten married that spent no time working on character development, that don't have a spiritual walk with God. Some of them are divorced, some of them are in bad marriages. So, like, the evidence just does not show that someone being single means that they are defective. It doesn't mean that at all. But for some reason, the enemy will propagate this lie to singleness. And I see people write articles, they write books, and it seems to be a common thread. Even relationship coaches, I feel, share or portray this view that someone who's single, especially if they're single above a certain age, like single above 35 or single above 40, they make it seem like it's your fault and it's because you have something defective in your character or you didn't do something that you were supposed to do to increase the chances of you meeting your spouse. I don't believe that that's to be the case. There's no biblical evidence for that. I go to the Bible for evidence for things and for guidance, and I go to God, and there's no biblical or Holy Spirit led guidance that tells us that that is true. So we have to reject that as a lie of the enemy. You being single is not a sign that you are defective. It's not a sign that God is punishing you. And it's not a sign that you are doing something wrong. Because there are plenty of people who are married who are doing things wrong, who probably shouldn't even have gotten married, either to the person they married or the time they got married. There are plenty of people who did not do any work on their character and they're married, right? So it has nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with it. I obviously feel very strongly about that because I feel like that's the common lie that Satan keeps trying to put in my head. I know I'm not the only one that feels that. And I know I've heard singles say the same thing because at some point you do start to wonder, like, okay, am I being punished? Is something wrong with me? Like what's happening? Like, I don't understand. So it's just a natural thought, but don't believe it. It's a lie from the enemy. Don't believe it. Okay, lesson number 2. Your purpose, your life has purpose right now. Your purpose does not start when you get married. Your life does not start when you get married. Singleness is actually the best time to start to figure out what your purpose and your calling is and to start doing it. It's the best time to work on growing closer to God spiritually, hearing his voice extremely well, and finding out what it is that he wants you to do in this earth, in this life, and starting to do it. Because you might think that when you get married, your husband will support you. But I just want to tell you that that's not necessarily the case. There are couples, I have friends, there are couples who the dream, the desire that the woman has to start a ministry, to start a business, the husband doesn't have the dream and the desire. And in some cases, he may not want the wife to spend the money to invest in that dream. He may not think it's a good idea. He may think it's a waste of her time. And then he might even discourage her from doing it. Right. So it's better for you to start it actually before you meet your spouse because it's going to be harder for him to discourage you and tell you to stop doing something that you love, that you're already doing, that's working. Whereas if you haven't started it yet and you're not confident and you're not certain, it's easier for someone like a spouse to come along and be like, I don't think you should do that. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think we should be spending money on that. So get started on your purpose now. It'll help you to have a lot more fulfillment in the singleness. It'll give you something to do, a project to work on, something to take your mind off of singleness. I know for me in my 20s, I was in medical school. I started medical school a little later because I worked for a couple of years before. But so my late 20s was medical school, early 30s was medical school, and I was focused on that. I was not even interested in marriage at that time. And I also started a business where I do lifestyle medicine. I actually had a lifestyle medicine practice for a period during the pandemic. I don't have that anymore, but now it's a ministry. But those projects helped me to feel a sense of purpose, to help me to feel fulfilled. And it took up a lot of my time actually outside of work. I was spending growing the business and speaking and doing different things like that. So find something that you love to do, seek God about it, but get started on your purpose now. You have more time now as a single person, especially if you're not married and you don't have kids. You have a lot more time than you will have once you get married and once you have kids. So that's my advice. And you'll also be a lot more fulfilled if you're walking in your purpose already. You never know. You might actually meet your spouse while you're walking in your purpose, doing your purpose, or you may meet someone who will connect you with your spouse, right? So you don't have to don't put your life on hold until you get married. Buy the house, take that trip, invest in the stock market, properties, whatever you want to do, whatever God is leading you to do. Don't put off things until you get married. I've heard women say they don't want to buy a house until they get married, or they don't want to take this big trip overseas until they get married. Like, I hate to say it, but I have to ask myself this too. You have to be like, well, okay, well, what if I don't get married? One, and then what if I don't get married for like another 10, 20 years? That house could have been gaining equity, could have been gaining value. You could have paid it off. Like, so many different things could have happened. So seek God about it, but don't view marriage as the starting point for life. Marriage is not the starting line for life. If you're alive right now, if God have woke you up this morning, you have a reason to be here. There's a purpose that He has for you. So you need to figure out what it is and what He wants you to do in this season. And if you're not married, it's because you're not supposed to be married right now. That's And First Corinthians 7:34 says this very well. It says, "The unmarried woman careth for the things of the Lord, that she may be holy both in body and in spirit. But she that is married careth for the things of the world, how she may please her husband." So this season of singleness is supposed to be occupied with fulfilling your calling, your purpose, starting to walk in it, and growing closer to God. And in doing so, it'll better position you to be a good wife. Next lesson, lesson number 3, God's timing is perfect. God's timing is perfect. I believe, and of course, this is not to say that everyone's situation is like this, but I believe that if marriage has not happened yet, it's because it's not time yet. Now, of course, I'm sure there are some people who are delaying marriage for whatever reason. Um, you know, running away from it or maybe preventing themselves from getting married. I'm sure that happens. But I think generally speaking, there's a time that everyone is supposed to get married. And I know that God knows the future. And there's nowhere in the Bible that says that everyone has to get married in their 20s or their 30s or their 40s or whatever age that society has said. Yes, for someone that wants to have children, there is a biological clock. We cannot ignore that. However, we cannot allow society to put pressure on us to make us think that if we haven't gotten married by an arbitrary age that society has said, that means that it's a delay. That's not the case in most people's situation, I don't think. And so when you believe and trust that God's timing is perfect, you understand that if it hasn't happened yet, it's not meant to happen yet. And a delay is not a denial. And Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, "To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven." I know couples who didn't get married until they were 45 or 50, and they shared beautiful story of how they felt like it was a delay, how they wanted to get married sooner. And now that they are finally, married, they can see why God didn't, or why they didn't get married sooner. They can see why it did not happen sooner. So we won't know the full picture until that time comes. But you have to be patient and have faith that if you're not married yet, it may be because it's not time for you to be married. And it may also be because your partner has some work that they need to do. There may be some positioning for both of you, one or both of you. But God knows. So we have to remind ourselves and remember that God's timing is perfect, and we have to trust that He knows when, how, what, and where everything in our life will happen. He knows all the details. And again, sometimes I think society and the enemy tries to make singles think that if they're not married by a certain age, if they don't have children by a certain age, that they're delayed, that they've missed the boat. And then there's even some secular relationship coaches spreading this message. I forget exactly how they word it, but they make it seem like if you're single above 40, that you're like doomed and unattractive and like poor marriage care material and just like done, like just go roll over in a hole and die basically. Is what they act like. I'm like, that's so stupid. It doesn't even make sense. It's like ridiculous. So yeah, God's timing is perfect. And it'll happen when it's supposed to happen. So just be patient. Number 4, wholeness must come before oneness. Wholeness should come before oneness. What I mean by that is it is better for two whole people to come together and marry rather than two broken people to come together. Because when you get married, you're dealing with someone else's past history, generational traumas, um, past hurts, expectations, and you're dealing with your own stuff. So it's better to start to heal from your past, your childhood, and develop your character, work on your character. So the biggest thing that I would say to anyone who's single is to get in therapy. If you're in your 20s, get in therapy. You're in your 30s, get in therapy. If you're in your 40s, get in therapy. No matter what age you are, I think that every adult should be in therapy, but especially someone who has experienced what they call adverse childhood experiences. And what is examples of that? So that is someone who has experienced a parent with a drug addiction, a mental illness, death of a parent being in jail, divorce, parents. Of course, that would account if you're from a single parent household as well. Those are some of the big ones that I can think of. And of course, if you experience childhood trauma like abuse, physical, sexual, emotional abuse, if you've experienced any one of those, you definitely should be in therapy, I believe. And I would say, I think people need therapy lifelong. I wish I had been in therapy sooner. I started it during the pandemic. It was stressful. And it was so helpful just like sit down and have someone to just talk to and give you a different perspective on the way you're viewing the world because everyone views the world through a clouded lens, a different lens, and that lens is not really clear. What we all see is a fragment of our past experiences, how we view ourselves, what we think about the world, our past experiences. Those all are the filter through which we interpret our experiences. And so it's helpful to have a neutral party, like a therapist, who can help you to see where there are limitations in your thinking and how you're interpreting a situation, and they can help you to grow. They are very big on self-actualization and helping you to grow. So that's the biggest piece of advice that I would give for singleness, that is to get into therapy. And I will also say that a lot of my married friends say that marriage is hard, and I used to not really understand why they say this, but someone who's married recently shared that when you're married, there's increased spiritual warfare that is on the couple. So you could be dating happily, in love and everything, and then you get married, and next, you're arguing, you're fussing, you're mad at each other, you can't stand each other. I've heard many couples say the first year is the hardest. They say the first year is the most difficult year of marriage. And I believe that it partly is related because of the increased spiritual warfare. Because you have to understand that Satan hates the church and he hates marriage. The church, marriage is the example that the Bible uses to describe Christ's relationship to the church, the bride and the groom. So Satan is going to try so hard to break up marriages. He loves when people get divorced. He loves when people cheat, when marriages fall apart, when things don't work out. He loves that. And so I definitely think that if you're not in tune with God, close walking with God daily, without God, a happy marriage is going to be very, very difficult. It's going to be very, very difficult. And so focus on wholeness, becoming whole, healing, and improving your character before you get married. Because when you get married, those deep inner flaws that you have, that we have, humans have flaws. They tend to come out in an intimate relationship like marriage. People can wear a mask when they're dating or when you're just, knowing someone on a surface level. But when you're living together and you're married, those things will come to the surface and they will be exposed. And then you've got to navigate them together with someone else. So take this time to heal, to work on yourself, grow spiritually. It'll position you in a better way to become a better partner when you do get married. Okay. And remember, a relationship doesn't complete you. Only God can. A relationship with Christ um, fulfills us, but a marriage, a relationship with another human being, if you think about it, human beings are flawed and sinful, cannot complete us. A relationship with another human being who is flawed and sinful cannot bring us this everlasting joy, peace, fulfillment, and happiness. And I think too many people seek from another person, a spouse, what they should be seeking from God. God is the only being, the only one that can give us happiness, peace, joy that's lasting. And He's the only one that can love us perfectly and unconditionally. So we should actually really have a more realistic view of marriage and people and expect that people will disappoint us, expect that people will let us down sometimes, and expect that sometimes people may disappoint us and make us unhappy. And I think sometimes when I listen to marriage couples, it's almost like it seems like they expected their spouse to make them happy. And that people literally divorce for this reason. They're like, oh, I'm not happy anymore. I'm not happy. Well, it's not your spouse's job to make you happy. You should be happy in and of yourself. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about an abuse. Obviously, you're not going to be happy in abuse, and that's, a different story. But I think sometimes people are just unhappy for whatever reason. It has nothing to do with their spouse, but because they're married, they feel like their spouse should be making them happy, and so they want to divorce because they're not happy. So it must be their spouse's fault. Not realizing that true happiness can only come from God. So people need to stop seeking from God. People need to stop seeking from other humans what only God can give. People need to stop seeking from humans what only God can give. And if you have that mindset and understand that the purpose of marriage is not to make us happy, that's another lie from the enemy. The purpose of marriage, I think, is to make us holy. That's what I read in this book. It said marriage is designed to make us holy, to develop our character, to prepare us for heaven, to help us to work on those areas of our character that need to grow, that need to be stretched. Is that a pleasant process? No, it's not a pleasant process. It's not supposed to be. And so when you have the correct understanding of why God created marriage, you're going to be in a better position to navigate it and not run away from it just because it's tough or it's hard or when you have seasons when you're unhappy. So that's lesson number 4. Wholeness should come before oneness. And there are some books on marriage. I would actually recommend this book by Timothy Keller. It's The Power of Marriage. The book is The Meaning of Marriage by Timothy Keller. And there are some YouTube clips. He's recently passed away, but there are also some clips on YouTube if you're not really trying to read the book, but on YouTube there's some clips too. And he talks about the meaning of marriage. And he talks about that. He says the purpose of marriage is not to make us happy, but it is to make us holy. And when you understand that, I think if more people understood that, less people would be so quick to get divorced, less people would be so quick to be dissatisfied in the marriage because they wouldn't be looking to the marriage to do something that the marriage was never designed to do. A marriage was never designed to make us feel happiness, lasting peace, and eternal joy. That's what a relationship with God does. So there's that. And lesson number 5 is I would say to my younger self and to anyone who's single is to seek God's guidance for you about how you should prepare for your spouse. How should you prepare for marriage? I've seen a lot of coaches, even Christian ones, say that you should position yourself and increase your chances to meet an eligible mate by going to cities where there are a lot of single people, going to conferences to meet single people, going to different churches to meet single people, and moving to cities where there's lots of singles. And I have done all of that. When I finished residency, I was in North Carolina in Greenville, which is a small town. And I think I felt like the Lord was telling me I was going to end up back in North Carolina or that I should move to North Carolina, but I wasn't too sure. I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of single people in DC. I'm going to be in a better position to meet somebody in DC. So I'm going to move to DC. And that's what I did. Met some people, date, went out, with people and stuff like that. And then I felt the Lord impress upon my heart that I should move back to North Carolina. Seeing things start to come back again. And I've traveled. I go to conferences because I love to learn. So I'm going to conferences that I'm interested in, and I meet a lot of people. And you know what? It occurred to me is that I don't need to meet 100 people. I don't need to meet 200 people to increase my chances. When I'm operating in my own strength, that's the kind of mindset that I need to be doing. If I'm operating in my own strength, I need to increase my odds of meeting him. But if I seek God's guidance and operate in his strength, he can tell me. He knows where my husband lives. He knows how I can meet my husband. He knows if there's a mutual friend that I could meet at this conference that lives in this city that I could move to that could connect us. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? So instead of thinking I need to increase my chances of meeting my spouse, why not seek God and ask him? God knows where your husband is. He knows where he is. He knows what he's doing right now. He knows what kind of woman he would be most attracted to. He knows how you're going to meet. He knows when you're going to meet, when you're going to get married. So why not seek him and ask him to give you some guidance on how you can prepare yourself so that you are best suited for that person to minimize friction when you get together. Ask him, is there anywhere that you can go, that you need to go to, any city that you can move to? Because like I said, you don't need to move to a city that has hundreds of singles. You might need to move to the city that has the one person for you. But there are people that have had dreams where God has revealed to them who their spouse is. There are people that God has given revelations to, a word of knowledge about who their spouse, where their spouse lives, and have instructed them to move to a city because they're going to meet their spouse through a mutual friend in that city. It may be a city that has hardly any single people. But God doesn't need probabilities. He's a God of the miraculous, the impossible. So it could be like 10 people in that city that's single, but that one of those people could be your person. So you don't need the odds to be in your favor. You just need God to be in your favor. You need God's wisdom to be in your back pocket, and he can guide you. And that'll give you better strategy to navigate your singleness. And that's also what another thing that I did when I was in my 20s. I believe that I would get married. I still do believe that back then in my 20s, even though I didn't want to get married in my 20s. My 20s and 30s, I really wasn't interested in marriage, if I'm honest. But anyway, what I asked God is I asked him, when I was in my 20s and I believe that God was showing me that I would eventually get married, I asked him to mold me into the type of woman that my husband needs. And what I meant by that was I knew that I don't even think I really fully understood the scope of it, but now it was a very wise prayer actually, because what it meant is I wanted to become sensitive to the things that my spouse needs me to be sensitive to. I wanted me to develop the skills that he needs so that we can balance each other out. And it's not saying that I wanted to change myself drastically, but I'm big on personal development and self actualization. And so I was like, God, mold me like clay, mold my character into the type of woman that my husband needs me to be. And I actually can't wait till I get married because I feel like I would have so many beautiful testimony stories to share about things that God um that people have shared with me. Um, but it would sound silly if I shared it now. But yeah, I did pray that prayer. And there actually have been some things that God has said, okay, you need to work on this, you need to do this, over the years, um, in preparation. So yeah, that was in my 20s. So that may be something that you might want to do. Ask God to mold you, help you to develop your characters into the type of woman, or to have the type of traits, um, skills in a particular area that your husband might need. And I wanted to share with you a verse, James 1:5, that says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given to him. Listen, single ladies, God has the cheat code. Okay, he has all the answers. It's like we're living this life like we don't have the open book. We have the Bible and we have God. We don't need to go searching, taking quizzes online, seeing relationship coaches and following somebody else's frameworks, doing all of this stuff to try and meet our spouse. We need to go to the source, God, and seek him for wisdom about meeting him, the timing, and if there's anything in our character that we need to develop, change, and be molded in a different way. So, in summary, I know there may be times where you may feel left out, abandoned, isolated, and lonely in your singleness. And society doesn't make it any easy. The church doesn't make it any easy because society is very much focused on families, couples, I should say, couples, moms, different things like that. So, especially if you're like 35 plus, you're like, well, that doesn't apply to me. But God hasn't forgotten about you, and He has a timing, and you are in a position right now that is unique as a single woman where you do not have to ask someone how to spend your money. And so if God has given you a dream, you are in a perfect position and timing to start it. If this is the timing for it, if God is leading you to start something now, this is the time to start it. You can do it with full dedication, no distractions, no hindrances, nobody discouraging you from doing it. You can just go full on that project, on that purpose, on that calling right now while you're single. Use that time wisely. And because when you get married, there's going to be a whole set of responsibilities that you're going to have to do, from taking care of the house. Typically, that falls on the wife. Cleaning, cooking, and then once you have children, taking care of the kids. Even though both spouses, husband and wife, have full-time jobs, most of the household will fall on the woman. That's what I've observed. Most of my friends are married, most have kids, but that's what I've observed, that most of the household falls on the mom, the wife. So I, you have so much free time now that you will know once you get married how much free time you have now, and just mental space, free mental space, that you're not having to think about something else. So this is the best time to work on your calling. And remember that Jesus, Paul, Jeremiah, John the Baptist all walked a full life full of purpose, unmarried, and so can you, so can we. And whenever somebody asks, when are you going to get married, why you're not married, or whenever someone tries to make it seem like something is wrong with you because you're not married, just remember that it's the lie of the enemy. And yes, the enemy can speak to and through well-meaning people who do care about you, who sometimes can give bad advice and discouraging advice unintentionally. They don't mean to, but sometimes they can say things that are very negative and discouraging. But you have to anchor yourself in the Word of God. There's nowhere in the Bible that says that something is wrong with you if you're not married by 35. Okay? There's nowhere in the Bible that says something is wrong with you if you don't have a child and you're 40 plus. So just remember that. And we have to stand on the word of God and not allow the enemy or people to make us feel like we are less than because, we haven't done XYZ. And I'm not saying this as someone um who never feels like they're behind and delayed. I definitely feel that, especially in my 40s now. It's difficult being single, I would say. I would say I think that it is challenging. Um, but these 5 lessons that I've learned in my life have been helpful for me. And so hopefully they're helpful for you. I would pick one. First, of course, I would pray on it, ask the Holy Spirit to guide you, and pick one to work on, focus on, and let me know which of these five lessons resonated with you most? Is there anything that I shared today that resonated with you most that you're going to take away and reflect on that some more? Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and if this video was helpful in your life, and if you would like more content like that, let me know. Most of my content is based on faith, spirituality, spiritual growth, prayer, fasting, inner peace, and wellness, holistic wellness. And so this video is a little bit different. It's my first video talking about relationships. But I do hope that it was helpful and that you were blessed, encouraged, and uplifted. All right. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. And I'm going to tag two videos here that you want to watch next as well. All right. Bye.